be able to resuscitate them. You're not going to be able to breathe life back into them. And I think political wisdom dictates that you know who you can save and who you cannot save. When someone comes in for therapy, as a psychologist, we're taught that within the first session, you should already know whether you can save that person or not. After that first clinical hour, you should be able to say, I want to see you again next week, or I don't need to see you anymore because you're not ready to make that change. So we have to be fisher men and fisher women. We have to find those brothers and sisters in the community who are ready to be saved, and those who don't want them to be saved, leave them where they are. It takes me to a quote. My ancestor, the Honorable Frederick Douglass, who said, it's better to raise strong children than to repair broken men. So yes, we can't give up on African people. We got to save as many of our own as we can, but we have to recognize when someone has been so Europeanized that you cannot save them. One of the things that El Hajj knew, one of the things that Malcolm X knew, our shining black prince, was he understood that in order for us to go forward, you're going to have to reprogram the African psyche. In order for us to go forward, you got to reprogram the African collective unconscious, because 90% of the African mind is unconscious, and it has been Europeanized. It has been totally indoctrinated against African ideas and for European ideas. So if we want to liberate black people, we must liberate the minds of black people. Sometimes we're so quick to want to fix the economic problems. We want to fix the spiritual problems. We want to fix the political problems. We want to fix the cultural problems. But you're not going to fix anything unless you first fix the psychological problem. Every problem that we have begins in the mind. And unless you liberate the minds of Africans, you don't change anything else. Right now, we're talking about reparations, something that Malcolm was very keen on, reparations. But I want to be clear. 3 issues that I take with the reparations movement. I support reparations. I stand in unity with NCOBRA. I stand in unity with all of the reparations movements. But I do have 3 issues that have to be dealt with. Issue number 1, why are we not including the crimes that have been perpetuated against African people since the end of slavery, all the way up until today? Why are we not including that with the reparations movement? They not only owe for unpaid labor, they also owe for crimes committed since emancipation. They owe for crimes committed since the end of slavery. They owe for crimes committed since the 13th Amendment. So that's number 1. Are we saying that we're going to make them pay for 242 years, but they don't have to pay for 152 years of post-slavery oppression? Number 2, I don't hear anybody talking about the psychological consequences of slavery. In fact, we are owed more for the psychological damage than we are owed for the unpaid labor. The unpaid labor is nothing compared to the psychological damages reaped upon African people as a result of the Ma'afa that we're still suffering from today. When we see black men dating white women, that's a psychological consequence. When we see black women wanting to look like white women, that's a psychological consequence. When you see black people not building their own schools, that's a psychological consequence. When you see $2 billion on Air Jordan and $4 billion on liquor and $1 billion on McDonald's and $20 billion on perm, those are psychological consequences. So talk to me about what the white man owes us psychologically. Also, the other issue we have to deal with, if we're going to talk about reparations, we don't just stop with slavery. We have to talk about the reclamation of the tens of thousands of acres of land stolen from black people after slavery, at the hands of the Ku Klux Klan, at the hands of the white citizens councils. White people stole tens of thousands of acres of black folks through fear and through intimidation. So if we're going to get reparations, that means reclaiming all of the land that the white man stole from our ancestors. Because if we got all the land back that is rightfully ours, we would probably own 25% of America. And that is no exaggeration. And the last point when we talk about this, I have a problem with the fact that the reparations movement is segmented and fragmented. Why is there one reparations for the Caribbean islands, another reparations for Africa, another reparations for Europe, another reparations for the United States of America? Last time I checked, there was one slave trade. Last time I checked, we all came from the same place. So there should be one reparations movement for all African people in the world. It should be a pan-African movement. It should not be separated. It should not be fragmented. And it should not be reduced to us identifying with the enslavers. There's a movement right now called ADOS. I respect the brothers and sisters of the ADOS movement, but I got three very big problems with that movement. Number one, American descendants of slaves. Why are you so willing to call yourself a slave, but you don't want to call yourself an African? Number two, why are you telling African Americans to disidentify from their African brothers and sisters as if 3 million African immigrants, there's only 3 million African immigrants in the United States. Are you telling me that the African immigrant is my problem when they have taken nothing from me, but you don't say nothing about the homosexual movement that have stolen everything? You don't say nothing about the Mexican movement that has stolen everything. You don't say anything about the white female movement, the feminist agenda that has stolen everything. When you look at the black civil rights movement of the 1960s, who is most responsible for peeling back the gains of black people? Homosexuals, Latinos, white women, not African immigrants. Leave our brothers and sisters alone. United we stand, divided we fall. We are one family, and we will not tolerate anybody trying to break us apart. Black power.
Ashe, I know you were recently in Newark. What's the speaking schedule?